Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a question that, let's be honest, affects pretty much all of us, our relationship with our phones. We're going to look at the actual science of digital disconnection and what it really means for our happiness. So, let's get right into it. I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? We hear it all the time. You gotta unplug, do a digital detox. But what does the science actually say? Does spending less time staring at a screen automatically make you a happier person? Well, the answer is a whole lot more interesting than you might think. And what's so fascinating is that even the top scientists are split on this. It's like a great academic debate. In one corner, you've got researchers like Twenge, who argues that the rise of smartphones is directly linked to a crisis in teen mental health. But in the other corner, you have scholars like Orben, who say the effect is, well, tiny. She literally compares its impact on your well-being to eating potatoes. So who's right? Is it a crisis, or is it just potatoes? To get past this whole he said, she said situation, you can't just look at two things happening at the same time. You need a real experiment to figure out what's causing what. And, you know what? That's exactly what a group of behavioral scientists decided to do. They came up with this really clever concept they called a digital diet. And the idea is actually pretty simple. For a little while, a group of people would have to consciously cut back on all their non-essential screen time. We're talking about the time fillers, right? The mobile games, the YouTube binges, the endless scrolling through social media, all that stuff. So here's the game plan they used. First, they recruited people from Gen Z, which makes total sense. They're a generation that's never known a world without smartphones. They split them into two groups. One group went on the digital diet. Now, here's the brilliant part. The other group, the control group, went on a water diet. They just had to track how much water they drank. This was to make sure that any good feelings didn't just come from, the satisfaction of completing any goal. Then for 8 days, they tracked everyone's mental well-being. Okay, so the stage was set. The experiment was run. After those 8 days were up, what was the verdict? Did it actually work? The results were, wow, they were completely unambiguous. The group that cut back on their screen time saw a clear, totally measurable boost in their overall well-being. This wasn't just them saying they felt better, it was right there in the data. And when you look at the data, you can see exactly what changed. We're talking significant increases in things like self-esteem, mindfulness, and just general life satisfaction. And at the exact same time, things we don't want, like stress and loneliness, went down significantly. So the takeaway here was crystal clear. Intentionally using less digital media had a direct, positive, causal effect on mental health. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, the story takes this really fascinating twist. The research dug up something that completely goes against what most of us have been told, especially when it comes to the #1 digital villain, social media. I think most of us, hearing this, would have the same reaction. Okay, I get it. The problem is social media. I'll just delete Instagram, get rid of TikTok, and I'm golden, right? Well, not so fast. The science says it's actually not that simple at all. When the scientists compared that broad digital diet to what they called a social diet, where people only quit their social media apps, the results were kind of shocking. The broad diet worked wonders, but quitting only social media, yeah, that could actually backfire and make people feel worse. In fact, the data showed a negative correlation here. For some, quitting only social media actually led to a drop in positive emotions. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you suddenly rip away your main digital connection to your friends, it can trigger this intense fear of missing out, FOMO. It can make you feel even more isolated than before. And on the flip side, there was a positive link to negative emotions. So this super targeted approach actually boosted feelings of anxiety and boredom. The message here is so important. Treating social media as the one and only bad guy is just a flawed strategy. It's really about managing your entire digital life. So if a big, broad digital diet works, but just zeroing in on social media can fail, what's the secret sauce? Well, the next piece of the puzzle is all about context. It turns out it's not just if you put your phone down, it's when you do it, and maybe most importantly, who you're with when you do it. And if you look across different age groups, you see these really different patterns emerge. For Gen Z, that phone can feel like an extension of themselves, which makes disconnecting really tough. Older adults, on the other hand, are way more likely to put their phones away when they're with a partner. And younger generations, they're really sensitive to being phubbed. when someone ignores you to look at their phone. So they're more likely to disconnect when they're in a group with friends or family. And all of that leads us right here to what is probably the single most important finding in all of this research. That happiness bonus, that real boost in well-being that you get from disconnecting, it really only gets switched on when you are physically in the same room with other people.
This is so crucial. I mean, think about it. If you're just sitting in your room by yourself, forcing yourself to stay off your phone, the benefits are tiny. The real magic happens when you put your phone away so you can be more present with the actual, real-life human beings right there in front of you. Disconnecting isn't about isolating yourself. It's a tool to make your real-world interactions better.
Okay, so we've been through the big debate, the experiment, and all the surprising little details. So what does all this science mean for you in your life? Let's boil it all down into a clear, actionable strategy. All right, here's your game plan based on the science. First, find your sweet spot. This is about moderation, not getting rid of your phone completely. Just reducing your use is way more effective than a total ban. Second, prioritize social settings. The most powerful happiness-boosting time to disconnect is when you're with other people. Put your attention on them. Third, ignore what's called the skills paradox. Just because you're good with tech doesn't mean you're immune to its pull. And finally, focus on your intention. Your conscious choice to be present matters more than anything else. And that really just leaves us with one last thing to think about. I want you to take a second to look at your own habits and ask yourself this really simple but powerful question. Is your phone a tool that serves you and your life, or have you somehow become a servant to it? Now that you're armed with the science, that choice is yours. Thanks for digging into this with us.